Morning, everyone. For those of you that haven't met me before, I'm Richard. I work for Avaya, and I really want to talk to you today about a number of different topics. And it's a very, very weird world that we live in. I've actually been around unified communications and collaboration most of my life. If you look at my CV, I've got the CV of an 85-year-old in all these different roles and jobs and contractors and what have you. But in that time, I've been privileged enough to work with some huge vendors of technology and some huge companies, some banks, some finance institutions, manufacturing. And really the thing that's hugely important to me, the real passion that I have about what I do today, comes down to this really important word on this slide. And that word's interaction. Now, the key about interaction and why it's relevant is that it's fundamentally changed the way that you, that we, that everyone invests in both technology and business-enabled solutions. Back in the day, if I think about the challenges that businesses used to face around communications, collaboration, contact center, those types of challenges always revolved around the classic return on investment, CapEx, OpEx, how do you get the most of what you have today. Those were huge priorities back in 2010. Gartner predicted back then that by 2013, that shift would have moved away from these cost-based decisions and really into something more important. And that focuses around these 2 points on the right-hand side of this slide. The idea around creating new products and services. What do you do within your company to serve your customers more effectively is a conversation I have every single day now. That conversation used to be around how do we deliver a new portal at our front end? How do we deliver a new website, for example? Now, it's very much about how do I encourage a greater level of interaction with my customer. I'll give you an example of this. I'm a bit of a tweeter, for what it's known. I didn't really understand Twitter when I first came across it. It was a bit of an unusual trend for me. Really, I don't need to know if people are on their way to work or eating an apple or enjoying a chocolate bar. I don't care. But over the last kind of 6, 12 months, Twitter's changed. I started looking at companies who are now reaching out and touching customers that previously they wouldn't have seen. In fact, I think about how the user adoption in businesses is now guided by things like Twitter, Facebook, social media, and this ability to be connected, this ability to interact. Of all the things on this slide, and there's all types of user devices and considerations, smartphones, tablets, there's a really difficult challenge when we think about this consumerization of IT, this consumerization of things like bring your own device. I have a long-standing bugbear with this device consideration. I'll give you an example of this. Quick show of hands, who has an iPhone? Okay, so well done, Apple. I think you've done well there. You've got the wrong phone, just by the way. You should have a Samsung Galaxy S3 LTE 4G phone. I used to have an iPhone. I had one for quite a while, actually, and I did that rather stylish maneuver of deciding I wanted a white iPhone. I had it for ages, and then I went skiing. I won't dwell on that particularly, but I got back to the UK and decided that I was going to change my phone. So I went to my service provider. I won't name and shame them here, but I phoned them, reached through to their contact center and said, hi, I've had an incident with my phone and some snow. Could you please replace my phone? And the very helpful lady said, oh, we'll send you an iPhone 4G. And I was thinking, sorry, 4S even. And I was thinking, I don't want that, actually. What I really, really want now is an Android phone. I'd like to try it, see if it meets my need. My user adoption might be better with an Android phone. And she said, no problems, Mr. Bennett. That'll be with you in about 2 weeks. And I breathed in and I said, hang on, 2 weeks? Surely you can just send me a phone today. It'll be here tomorrow. And if you look at my bills and my account, and I got a little bit shirty with it. I'm, after all, from Yorkshire. I prefer good service, not bad service. And she said, no, it's definitely going to be 2 weeks, Mr. Bennett. And I said, well, what do I do for 2 weeks? And she said, do you have another phone? And I said, well, actually, I do. I have a Nokia 6110, the phone that will never die, by the way. And that battery, I think I charged it in January, and it still seems to work. Now, for those of you with your iPhone hands in the air, what do you want about now? About half battery since you charged this morning? So I said, no, okay, I can't wait for that. And I called, and she put me through to an escalation centre, then put me through to somebody else. And in the end, I was quite annoyed, so I went to Twitter. And on Twitter, I put, this service provider, really disappointed. It's like that classic parent line. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed in my service that I've received. And I must have gone through calls after calls after calls. One tweet, and my phone rings. Because on that tweet, I also put, blah, 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 and I tagged all the other vendors who provide mobile phone contracts, and immediately I got this phone call. Can't have been more than 5 minutes. Oh, hi, Mr. Bennett, it's Julie from your service provider. I see you've tweeted and you're not happy. Really sorry for the service that you've experienced in our contact center. A BlackBerry will be with you tomorrow. And I said, well, I don't want a BlackBerry. And let's be honest, who does at this moment? But then she said, no, you misunderstand. We're going to send you a free BlackBerry as an apology. You can keep that, that's yours, and your Android phone will be with you on Monday. And I thought, wow, that's great service. And then I thought about that interaction, that flow that had happened. And I realized that, why did that happen? Why does my service provider care if I tweet bad things about them? Why do they even bother to look at Twitter? And I realized that actually that service level, this interaction that they've built, depending on how I choose to be and what I use, and whether it's an iPad or an iPhone or an Android, the way that I communicate may not be voice, it may be video, it may be text, it may be email, it may be a conversation using social media. As I think about all those elements, why was Twitter so important? Because interaction is only really relevant to your businesses if it's done with context. Now, context is a really important word here because for me, if my service provider looked at me and I'm Richard Bennett and I've got 3 followers and one of them Stephen Fry, they don't care about what I say about them because no one really sees it. But if you look at my Twitter feed, I'm followed by most of the vendors in this room, as well as obviously Avaya, for whom I now work. I'm followed by a number of mobile providers, a number of different environments. I'm not like a hugely popular Twittery person, but I do have about 300 followers, and therefore I'm more contextually relevant as their customer. And they saw that, and they acted upon it. Think about your business. Someone says something bad about you in the Twitter sphere, do you care? And if you don't care, why not? Because is your competitors going to be looking at that and saying, oh, we've now got an opportunity to steal a client, a business, a customer, a contract, and it builds and builds and builds. This concept around user adoption and the end user, this concept around how do we do that, how do we look at what the user demands and imperatives are, really leads us here to this conversation. I have a younger sister. She's approaching 25, which, by the way, now makes me feel very old. But she has never once phoned me. She will poke me on the Facebook, of course, something I've yet to discern why. She will tag me in pictures where I'm not there. She actually has a new dog now, and she's tagged me as the dog. Because for her, she wanted to share that picture with me, and that's the best way of making that relevant. I think about the fact that she's never phoned me, these indecipherable text messages I receive. I have an application on my MacBook that allows me to translate it back to English. Allows me to really see and interact with her in a different way. She doesn't want to talk to your business on a phone. She would like to tweet. She would like to interact with your companies in different ways. I think about banks. I think about service providers. I think about even things as we approach Christmas now, and I apologize for mentioning that in November, but as we approach Christmas, how do people interact with retail environments? What do they do to generate these requests? And if I then think about 2010, my conversations would always begin with, what infrastructure do I need? What vendor must I buy to make these things happen in my enterprise? If I think about the conversation now, it starts in the top right-hand corner around business transformation. How do I transform the way I interact with my clients and customers? It's a really important world is this business transformation world. Because everyone talks about communication or collaboration-enabled business processes. And we do that because it's important to embed communications in everything that we do. As a leading contact center provider, as a huge UC vendor, we have this end-to-end solution. It's actually one of the reasons I came to Avaya, that allows us to carry interactions from the very core of an environment all the way through to a customer seamlessly. But that seamlessness, that ability to bring those interactions into your businesses, as well as building upon the things you have in your enterprise, really only works with the context that I mentioned earlier. But secondarily, there's the most important word that you should hear today, and that's federation. Federation is deeply misunderstood in most of the businesses I talk to. It's deeply misunderstood in some of the vendors and how they deliver it. It's deeply misunderstood as a tool because it's so radical. You shouldn't be limited by the technology that you choose. If you choose vendor A, vendor B, vendor C, in each of these three steps, you may well deliver business transformation for your customer. But then you have to ask the question, what happens if my customer uses a new technology? What if Kindle Fire HDs suddenly have a new application we've never seen before? Does my investment support the ability to work with it? Federation, then, is not about single vendor to single vendor solutions. And in fact, in the last 5 years, I would say, every time that I get on a stage anywhere in the world and talk about interaction, there will never be a single vendor solution ever again. And that's been true for so long now. Because the art of federation, the art of being able to mix solutions seamlessly, whilst maintaining and guaranteeing that interaction, is what's really the primary level of your investments. That's what you should be thinking about, and that's what I think about when I speak with our customers, our clients, and our analysts. Really then, the journey, this journey towards business transformation, it starts with a very interesting step, this concept of consolidation. How do I bring together my existing investment? How do I look at my current infrastructure and bring that to a foundation that allows me to plan for the future? If you were going to build a house, you wouldn't start by going and finding a 2-acre field and laying down a concrete platform on which to build the house. You'd start with a plan, a vision. I want 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, an office. I want one of those open plan kitchen things that I keep seeing on grand designs. But you'd look at all that requirement and then you'd think about what's the foundation. As we look at this journey then, and it can be 6 months, or it can be 5 years to reach this level of business transformation, what do you do to plan around that and build that foundation? The other thing that's very important about this view is that it has to be considered beyond your enterprise. Cloud is a fascinating concept. I talked about this again in a federation perspective. How do you deliver a cloud? If your cloud is the edge of your business, if it's a private cloud, if you're offering services for your employees and customers in a public cloud, what are the challenges there? And to be honest, the two biggest ones are normally the commercialization. How do I make that a consumable model for either my employees or my customers? And secondly, security. Those are the two challenges. The technology exists today. We have the technology today. And in thinking about that cloud scenario, I was in the US a couple of months ago, talking about, federation, cloud, interaction, the usual kind of jazz. And suddenly, I realized that really the additional point here is that clouds have to federate. If you have a public cloud and we have a public cloud, really they should blend in the middle. They should be borderless in the cloud. That's how you build a strong transformation, consumable, licensable model to deliver these services in which you're investing. American guy got on the stage after me and then started talking about something I found fascinating. When you have two clouds, there's now this term, which you probably haven't heard yet, called the mist, which is the next evolution of two clouds touching each other. So what does all this mean? Well, for me, when I thought about joining Avaya, and this was almost 2 years ago, in fact, now, the lead for me, the idea around what we deliver is absolutely based around interaction and this proof point of federation. June this year, we completed the purchase of probably the best known federated technology for video, and that was RadVision. RadVision as an Avaya company now delivers that vision for us around video. The Flare experience that we have sits on an iPad. You can see it at the back of the room anytime today. Go play with it. But it all leads to more enhanced interaction. And all of that is completely irrelevant. Because the whole point of interaction, the whole point about how people communicate and collaborate is that it will not be successful in your business at all if the user doesn't adopt it. Last Christmas, we went back home, and we go home every Christmas, back to Yorkshire, and my mother makes a good stab at a Christmas dinner, I will say that. So we thought last year we'll bring her into the 21st century kicking and screaming. She, for the longest number of years, has always recorded Coronation Street on a VHS recorder. And I thought, I didn't even know they existed anymore, and I keep going back to one of the pop-up top ones as well. It's not a new one. And how that tape still works, I don't know. But we thought, we'll borrow a DVD recorder. That would be fantastic for her. She doesn't have to delete anything. She doesn't have to re-record. It's very simple. She hits a button, off it goes. I was like, fantastic. I went to see them in June. I happened to be in Leeds, so I thought I'd pop in. And I said, how are you getting on with the DVD recorder? She said, don't like it. And I looked, and the VHS recorder's back in the TV cabinet. Because her user experience, she got used to it. She knew it, she knew how it worked, she didn't want to learn something new, and it still delivered on her expectation. I think about client applications, I think about soft desktop applications, I think about the reason that video didn't take off 3 years ago in the way that we were all promised it would do. It wasn't a conversation around bandwidth and those type of things. Anyone can create bandwidth. It was about the user adoption. And user adoption in of itself is a fascinating conversation. We tend to find that the most important part of user adoption fits into 3 key areas. It's either the way that someone behaves, and the way that someone behaves is very different person on person. Give you an example of this. I was in Santa Clara a while ago. We've got a big development site there. Most of our business unit and product house is based in Santa Clara now. I like Santa Clara, it's a nice town. But I had to go to New York. And I thought, well, I'll fly. It's a relatively short flight, only a couple of hours. So I took American Airlines. Nice airline if you're inside America. And I'm sitting on the plane and I'm thinking, yeah, it's very comfortable. And I looked into the aisle and there was a lady there on Facebook. And I thought, it's a bit unusual. Didn't realize you could use offline Facebook and save pages. I thought, I'll investigate that. And then she refreshed the page and I realized all of a sudden she was on the internet. Now I'm thinking, there's a little bit of geek in me somewhere still, I'm sure there is. So I went to my iPad, as you do, opened it up, settings, Wi-Fi, and sure enough, at 30,000 feet in the air, there's a Wi-Fi network with internet access for free. And I looked at this and I got extremely excited. So what do you do when you've got Wi-Fi access? I'm thinking, well, I've got 4 hours, I could do some work. And then I thought, or I could go on the internet and have a look around for stuff. And then it hit me that I could actually probably make a phone call. And it hit me because with an iPad, one of the biggest challenges around the iPad functionality is that it's not a telephone. Yeah, there's a bit of Skype on there sometimes, there's the old Apple Talk and those kind of things. But in the end, for me, I thought, what if it works? What if I can actually make a phone call on this plane right now? That'd be a huge leap forward. So I fired up my VPN, which worked, so that's step 1, all good. I fired up my Flare client, that's excellent as well. Up it came, found the directory, all my presence was there. I was getting a little bit excited as I put my headset on. The guy next to me is looking a little bit worried as to what I'm doing. And then I thought, I'm going to phone someone. I could phone anyone at work. And actually instead I phoned my mum. Because, you know, you just would. So I phoned her, I went, Mum, I'm on a plane. It's 30,000 feet and I'm on a plane. And she went, that's great. It's 2 in the morning. Why are you calling me from a plane? Are you allowed to call from planes? I was like, right, I'm going to go. Let's not get into an argument on here. The point is that for me, the way that I behaved, the context in which I was trying to operate, the way that I wanted to interact, it's all right there. But then think about what I did. I started at my iPad, found a Wi-Fi network, had to go to a VPN, had to go to my Flare client, had to find my mum's phone number. Then I had to think about how do I call, I had a headset. There's a lot of steps in that process. What would be great, what would be really good is if it was one touch. I just go to my iPad, into my contacts, find my mum, click it, and it knows that my preferred method might be a video communication. It knows that my preferred method might be a voice call. It knows that because the awareness that we build into solutions is designed to trend that. It's designed to understand that the relationships with people change. If I think about my mum, when she phones her bank, she doesn't want to tweet them or Facebook them. She wants a phone call. I think about my sister, she wants to do exactly the opposite of that. And there's a certain argument around the age thing, certainly, but in the end, when we think about how all of these separate elements come together, be it things like my calendaring, my email, my documents, all of this has to be tied into one elemental process for interaction. It has to be built into this structure around whether it's relevant, is it available, is it simple, and it has to lead to the adoption that gives us all these separate interfaces easily. That's the very essence of what we now do to enable businesses to adopt this technology. Some of your users don't want it. Simple as that. I think about my manager. He's an old school communicator, really great at what he does. I don't think we've once had a video conversation. I think about my teams in EMEA, and all of my conversations are now based on Scopia, based in the client. It's a cloud-based solution if you need it. It's federated in that it doesn't matter what you're using in here. Is it an iPhone? Is it a Samsung? Is it an iPad? Is it an Android tablet? It works seamlessly and guarantees that interaction. It does so because it makes it easy. The users find it easy. So what does that mean in a multimodal world? Well, I think about these challenges. I think about how the world has changed. When we think about Twitter and we think about Facebook, we think about all this stuff, I realize that that's leading us into this new journey. And that journey has to be part of a transformation. It has to be part of a longer-term vision and strategy. Certainly there are cost objectives. Certainly there are return on investment objectives. Certainly there are ideas around how you do more with less. That's a huge priority now. But how do you actually build and do more with more? How do you take those investments and grow them so you're leveraging them more effectively with your customers? You buy a collaboration solution for your business, why can't your customers join you in that? And if they can't join you because the technology doesn't allow it, it's the wrong technology. If they can't join in with the collaborative business benefits you're giving, then in essence, you really need to consider how you federate more effectively. How do you build a border to a public cloud that allows that? How do you work on these bring your own device challenges and make sure you can still deliver a guaranteed interaction? Interaction, neatly tied into user adoption then, means that above the line, when we think about federated video, when we think about real-time analytics, when we talk about embedding collaborative and communication tools into those processes, how do you do that? Is it possible? Can it be done? And yes, the answer is very simply yes. But you have to make sure that end user adoption is key. Otherwise, it simply doesn't work. So what does that mean then? If I think about Avaya, this is where obviously we get to the vendor piece, this is a view of a real world. This is not a product. I'm not going to start talking about communication managers and IP Office and Flare and all those things and tell you what they do. If you want to find out about that, the specialists are at the back. They understand exactly it. They'll show you it working. What I want to think about is, which of these pieces do you rely upon us to come and deliver? There's a huge move in thinking and thought around instant messaging and presence. It's an excellent tool. It has to be there. Again, it's adopted by those people that like instant messaging and presence. Not my mum, maybe my sister. And I think about what that means for us as businesses. If you already have investment, when you think about consolidation, if you already have a piece of this pie, that's great. Yeah, that's an investment choice you made, and it's a valuable piece of the way that you run your companies and businesses. How do you build the rest of the pie? And when I think about the rest of the pie, and we have Aura, and we have the agile communications environment sitting in the core, it's all about how do you federate those pieces of the pie. If there's a blue bit, a green bit, a yellow bit, and a red bit, that's fine. That's exactly the way that your business is demanding you consume this technology. For me then, when I think about video conferencing and I think about the challenges around the room-based systems that we often see, I think about that as being a very difficult hurdle to leap over because of user adoption. In my mind then, the challenge for you becomes, when you address those user adoption issues, how do you measure it? How do you do that without risk also? I had a great conversation with a huge bank a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about bring your own device. And they said, we really like the idea of bring your own device, but we really can't do it. And I said, well, why not? And they said, because we cannot control the security policy on those devices effectively. It's not a challenge around technology. It's actually a challenge around security. The biggest thing that I've heard at most of the bring your own device conferences I've been to is, how do we even build a policy for this? We've got no clue how to really generate that policy, how to manage that policy. There was a case last week in the US where someone had gone and said, okay, so you've got an iPad. What we're going to do is jailbreak your iPad, input our own security policy software, and then it will still work the same way as your device. It was an interesting approach, and quite frankly, I don't think it's a scalable approach, but it does show you some of the tricky challenges that BYID will definitely present to your businesses. I had another company tell me that they definitely support bring your own device. I said, excellent, so that's anything, any device federated together, working, delivering interaction. And they said, oh no, we only allow Apple devices. I'm like, well, that's not bring your own device. That's bring the device we tell you to bring, which is a very difficult acronym to try and say out loud, by the way. It leaves you in a very interesting conversation because last year we purchased a company called Sapira. And Sapira came together to not just secure our conferencing portfolio, not just to bring us Flare without VPN, because again, if you try and go to 90% of the users in the world and say to them, hello, to use a client, you have to click here, open a VPN, put in your username and password, wait for it to secure, and just by the time you get to this point, most people have gone to sleep. As a result, you need something that allows it to work very effectively and simply, and that's really where we put in the security solution as well. That is the border to the cloud, by the way. Because you can extend now the services in the middle of this pie directly out to the customers that you have. You can do that to deliver business transformation, and you can do it in a way that's very, very simple to deploy based on your existing investment. This isn't a UC conversation only, by the way. It's not a collaboration conversation only, by the way. Because when you start pigeonholing these separate technologies, is it UC, is it CC, is it video, is it a contact center solution, again then you're starting to put in those barriers. True business transformation starts with the end-to-end, any-to-any, completely seamlessly interactions, and then you build down into what you need. I mean, hey, would I love you to buy everything on this board and say it's all Avaya? Yeah, of course I would. Every one of my sales teams would, of course they would as well. So that's a different question. Am I a realist? Absolutely. Do I know that you've got investments in certain technologies you're trying to leverage? Absolutely you do. But when you think about that bridge, that span, that gap, really it's the little bits in between that's the most important conversation. I like this idea of consolidate to integrate to innovate. I think about how customers are delivering that, and I think about how we can drive them forward. I'm around all day, and if you want to talk a little bit more around this, this is something that we call CI squared. It's where we think about what you're trying to get to. What is your end business transformation vision, and how are we helping support that? Consolidation, take what you have today, is that first step on that journey. But in the end, context is where we need to get to. And a contextually aware service in your business is radical. I'll give you a real-world example of that. With part of our Flare solution, as part of what we do in the desktop space, we have context-enabled communications and contacts. When my PA contacts me to remind me that I've inevitably forgotten something else, it pops up, and at the same time it says, normally when you speak to Regina, you generally have to speak to these people next. At the same time, it pops up in the bottom corner and shows me all of the previous emails, calendar appointments, all of the contacts, the instant messaging of Regina. And also, if I have documents relevant to this conversation, it will tell me where to find them with a single touch. Think about yourselves. If I call you tomorrow and say, hey, do you have that document we talked about 3 weeks ago? I emailed it on, I think, the Wednesday. How long does it take you to look through 1,000 emails that you should have deleted but you never did? And what if it just promoted that information, that content, directly at the same time as an available one-click touch? That's what it does. And I cannot tell you the amount of time it saves me personally. I think about this journey and that's how we go along it, and I think about what that means then when we think about the contextual collaboration. Really, every question you have to ask yourself is not around about which vendor should I choose, which network provider should I choose. It's about what is my user demographic. I personally talk about a collaboration quotient, because everything should have a little ditty name to it. But really what it means is, how collaborative is a person, how do they interact, and how are you delivering that, not just today, but think about my little sister who comes along to your business in a year, 2 years, 3 years. She's not necessarily going to want a phone on a desk. Maybe she will, maybe she won't, but you have to understand how she wants to interact if you're going to support that interaction. And really then, what I want to leave you with is something I find fascinating. A while ago, we received this from our friends in the US. I cannot tell you the number of people that have subsequently asked me if we now sell Nintendo consoles. It's rather entertaining for most people. You'll normally get it at the start of a sales meeting, you laugh it off, etc. But I really thought about what it means to interact, and I thought about my world. I thought about the fact that recently my partner was in hospital, and It's very difficult when they throw you out of a ward at 7 p.m, but it's very easy when I just fired up a Rad Vision room and allowed us to keep speaking late into the night with her headset and video. A huge personal move forward. I think about how that applies to my sister. I think about how it applies to businesses like yourselves. And I realized that interaction really is more than a technological discussion. And then I thought about this last word on this board. And really, old technology discussions around end users used to be about me. What do I want? And when you bring all these features, contextual services, into the cloud, with applications on any device, anywhere, anytime, consumable by a user so simply as clicking one button, you're generating this concept of a we, of a community. And really, when I think about why I joined Avaya and the strides we've made forward in the last 2 years, that's why I did it. To make a difference to businesses and help you build those communities, not just inside your business, but also to your customers. And I'll be around all day if you want to talk to me about it. Thanks for your time.